Dia de los Muertos 3, Season de la Bruja. From the back of the DVD case, a talented dancer has been accepted to a school for gifted young women. What will she do when she discovers the school's true purpose? To find a suitable bride for the Dark Lord Satan. Overview. Season de la Bruja tells the story of Claudia, a gifted dancer attending the prestigious Lombardi School in Rome. It turns out the Lombardi School is actually run by a coven of witches, and their goal is to find and groom an exceptional young woman to be Satan's bride. In this game of Choose Your Own Adventure, on a failed roll, you must narrate Claudia becoming the bride of Satan and possibly giving birth to the Antichrist. Enjoy. You've been at the Lombardi School for several weeks now. Most days are pretty boring. Classes, dance practice, etiquette lessons, more classes, more dance practice. But lately you have started to notice strange things. An unusual number of black cats turning up on the school's steps, weird noises like whispered voices coming from the vents, and several crosses that have been turned upside down. Tonight, as you were about to get ready for bed, you were disappointed to find that the girls from the East Wing are using your wing's lavatory, as theirs is having some plumbing issues. It was too crowded for your taste, and so you decided to use the small bathroom near the faculty lounge. As you approach that small, out-of-the-way bathroom, you hear some strange noises coming from the faculty lounge. Singing, possibly? Or chanting? Yes, definitely chanting. And it's getting louder and louder. What do?
You approach the faculty lounge and press your ear up against the door to try to listen. Turn to page 50.
If you pretend you didn't hear anything and go to brush your teeth, turn to page 72.
If you decide to hide in the janitorial closet across from the lounge and peek out the door, turn to page 83.
If you bend over at the waist and peer into the skeleton keyhole to see what lies beyond in the faculty lounge, turn to page 66.
If you take out your phone and record the chanting and send it to Shazam, turn to page 39.
If you take the cigarette out of your pocket that Jane gave you earlier today and light it up to have a smoke, turn to page 239.
I'm going to go with, it was either that or the cigarette, but I'm going to go with the janitorial closet. So I'm just going to be real deliberate about the rules until we get the hang of it. The difficulty is currently 1. He's going to roll 2d6. As long as he doesn't roll lower than a 1, the choice is successful. The first 2 choices are always successful because until you get to 3, you can't actually fail. So
I rolled greater than 1.
Awesome. Please continue the story.
As you hide in the janitorial closet, the sound of the chanting grows louder and louder. Was that a scream you just heard? Or was it just someone really excited? You hear footsteps coming down the hall. What do?
If you creak the door open slowly and silently to try to get a glimpse at who's coming down the corridor, turn to page 60.
If you uphold the tradition of making love in this particular janitorial closet, tend to rattle the door so that you're not disturbed. Continue to page 17.
If the dust in the closet is getting to you so badly that you end up sneezing, turn to page 111.
If you lock the door and wait quietly as you can, turn to page 43.
If you reach down and pet the little black cat that is also in the closet with you, turn to page 61.
I think I want to turn to page 111 and sneeze and see what could possibly go right.
So, your allergies get you into trouble once again. And you, unfortunately, you don't have a particularly petite sneeze. You have a outrageously loud sneeze, which you picked up thanks to your dad. You try to stifle it, but you know that's not going to work. So you just let out this gigantic sneeze, and you hear the footsteps stop. And you also hear the sounds across the hall stop, the chanting. And you wait. And you see that the small, narrow space between the door and the jamb is becoming occluded. And you see a large, bloodshot eye staring back at you. What do you do?
If you completely lose control and you burst out of the door and attempt to flee, turn to page 406.
If you pick up the cat and throw it at the person in the door frame, turn to page 12.
If you quite suddenly wake up safe in your bed, rattled from the stream you just had, turn to page 19.
If you grab the janitor's mop and stab at the eye, turn to page 90.
If you, as quickly as you can, hide underneath a box that is in the closet, turn to page 74.
If you politely greet your floor supervisor with a curtsy, turn to page 83.
Let's go the Newhart direction. Let's go with waking up from the dream.
All right, so this is the first roll where I could actually fail, because it's 3. Oh my god, you exclaim as you wake up, your chest beating. It was just a dream. Whew. You lay back down. How ridiculous. The faculty, devil worshippers, witches, that's completely absurd. You're clearly just feeling the pressure of being away from home in a strange land. This is nothing like the farm you grew up on in Iowa. Nothing like it. And so you pull the covers back over you and begin to nod off. Except there is a pawing. No, a scratching. Near the foot of your bed, you bend over, turn on your night lamp. Your roommate snoring away. And there's a little black cat scratching on the bedpost. What do you do?
If you take the cat and pull it close to you and look at the strange symbols on its collar, turn to page 60.
If you jump out of bed, startled, and wake your roommate in a panic, turn to page 95.
If you look at the cat and ask it, there's not really any sort of evil chanting and devil worship going on around here, is there? Turn to page 69.
If you shoo away the cat and have difficulty falling back to sleep, turn to the next page.
If you stare at the cat for a moment or two, and then it says to you in a low baritone voice, "Don't worry, you can go back to sleep." Turn to page 33.
You recoil in horror from some strange feeling that creeps over you as the cat leers into your eyes. Turn to page 82.
Many fine options. I'm going to go with the slowly ramping horror of looking at the symbol on its collar.
You coax it up onto your bed, and it seems a bit startled. You start to pet it, and you notice it's got this black collar with red symbols scrawled across it. And as you start to look at them, they're not in any script you recognize. You reach out and you touch one of them. They remind you of some of the strange graffiti that you'd seen scrawled in the school bathrooms. They seem to almost draw you in. You want to study them, and it's hard to rip your eyes away.
If you feel like these symbols look very familiar, like that strange graffiti written in a circular pattern around the border of the faculty bathroom, and you decide to return there to take a closer look, turn to page 29.
If you give in to the sensation coursing through you as you stare at the symbols and see what lies beyond, turn to page 37.
If you mutter the first words that swim up into your consciousness as you look at these unusual symbols, turn to page 11.
If you reach for the Bible in your nightstand drawer to ward against this terrifying feeling, turn to page 99.
If you realize that the words on the collar that appear to be ringing in your ears are actually being spoken by your roommate, turn to page 112.
I think I'm going to go with my chanting roommate.
You turn your head towards your roommate, who previously had been fast asleep and snoring, and you can see that she is still asleep, still lying on her back, where normally she'd be snoring, but instead her mouth is speaking strange incantations that you just know match the words on the collar of the cat. And it is at that point that you notice that once again, the crappy lock on your door has failed to close completely. And the door slightly opens ajar, and another black cat comes in with the same collar. And then a third one, and a fourth one. And eventually there are about 17 of them, perched all around your room, staring at you, listening to your roommate chanting. What do you do?
If you give in to the uncontrollable urge to join along with your roommate in the chanting, turn to page 52.
If you give in to the urge to lay down in the middle of the room and allow the cats to nibble on every part of your body, turn to page 69.
If you take the cat you're holding and throw it at your roommate, turn to page 110.
If you grab the nearest piece of clothing you can find and jam it in your roommate's mouth to make the chanting stop, turn to page 4.
If you kick the cat that's nearest to you and run out of the room, turn to page 72.
If you reach into your nightstand for your Bible to bring you comfort when you're feeling this terrible emotion, turn to page 99.
We're throwing the cat. DC is 6.
You take the cat and just thrust it towards your roommates. It's this screeching as it claws their face a bit, and there's some blood dripping down their face, but they don't stop chanting. More cats are entering the room. They form a circle on the ground, and the blood dripping from your roommate's face as it hits the floor, as symbols light up across the floor, and a dark presence is suddenly felt in the room. It's something beyond your comprehension, but you feel it reach out and touch your mind and take possession over you.
All right, Shane, thumb in the book. You go back.
I'm going to reach for my Bible.
Wow, we got to the moral of the movie right away.
Yeah, and just so everybody's clear what's happening in the rules, because Brian failed the role, he had to narrate the Bride of Satan fail state. But Shane cheated, went back to the original page, chose a different one, and this one will be successful. So go ahead, Michael.
So you reach into your nightstand, grab your old red leather-bound Bible. It hasn't got a lot of reading time, but there's always one of these nightstands at this school. Even when you take it out, somehow they get placed back in there. Fortunately enough, as you grab it and hold it in your hands, the meowling from the cats gets louder, hissing, agony. Your roommate, in fact, bolts upright in the bed, turns to you, and her eyes are rolled back into her head, and she's chanting louder and louder, but you're able to get out of bed and walk towards the door. And even as your roommate gets out of bed and stares at you, again, with the milky white of the back of her eyes, they're not able to get within 3 feet of you. And you're able to make your way to your door, and you grab the handle and twist, and the room goes silent. Your roommate is back in their bed, asleep. The cats are gone. And you step out into the hallway, have opportunity to decide where you want to go from here.
If you decide you need to take a little bit of a break from all of this, but you decide to do that in a really stupid way, and you take that little smiling face piece of paper that your friend gave you back home, and you put it on your tongue, turn to page 137.
If you decide to go down to the headmistress's chambers and wake her to let her know that you can no longer stand your roommate's horribly annoying chanting all evening, turn to page 28.
If this story is taking place in the 1980s and you go out to the payphone just outside the school's gate and call back to the farm in Iowa, turn to page 19.
If you get on your school computer and start researching the symbols that you saw on the cat's collar, turn to page 80.
If you hold your Bible against your chest and work your way over to the faculty wing to go use the faculty restroom, turn to page 194.
If you seek the solace and comfort of the Lord and go to the chapel, turn to page 81.
DC 7, I think, has a pretty decent chance of failure, and I'd like to see that happen in the chapel. So I'm going to start with that.
As you walk into the chapel, you notice that all of the pews are occupied. All of the staff, all of the students, their heads bowed. Music swells as you walk down the aisle. You feel a dark presence behind you. You turn around. This shadow is stalking down the aisle. You hear the screams and wails of the congregation as it passes them. And then next to you, in front of the altar, is your new husband, Satan.
Bride of Satan! Awesome. Glad that happened. So let's have another morality tale in here and see what bad stuff happens when you take drugs.
This isn't your first time dropping acid, but this is your first time doing so after having what you're assuming are hallucinations. You take the little tab and you put it on your tongue and you wait. And you feel as though maybe you should move around a little bit. So you start walking down the hall and you keep on walking. And eventually you find yourself in the swimming pool complex where you see many people swimming laps but you're not exactly sure that they're people. You can't see their heads because they never come up for breath. But there are many of them. And as they swim, the sounds of the splashing gets louder and louder. What do you do?
If you hide behind one of the carested statues holding up the tile roof surrounding the classical Greco-style pool and observe what happens next, turn to page 28.
If you feel the sudden desire to cool off with whatever this thing is, remove your clothes and dive in. Turn to page 44.
If you back away slowly from the pool and slip into the locker rooms, turn to page 100.
If you just sit at the edge of the pool, dangling your feet into the water and staring as the shapes move and coalesce and split apart for what seems like an eternity, turn to page 71.
Let's go with the coalescing on page 71.
DC is 8.
You slowly reach down and you pull your slippers off, you pull your socks off, you roll up your pajama pants as you sit down on the hard tile floor, and you dangle your feet into the water. The camera zooms in as you splash your feet around a little bit. We hear you sigh as you relax, and the sound of the splashing stops. And then, with a sudden jerk of motion, you are dragged underwater. And as you're floating in this impossibly deep pool, you see it, that shadow, standing there. Your heart swells, and you just have to walk into its embrace.
All right. Let's go swimming.
Whew, boy, this LSD is really something. And you feel the need to clear your head and cool off a little bit. And so you want to join whoever's in there coming up towards you. Throw off your pajamas down to your small clothes, as they say in Game of Thrones. Promotional tie-in, right? And just like back on the farm, you do a cannonball right into the water. You do in the creek back home. And Samantha is in there. Samantha was the one who was splashing towards you. Samantha says, "Oh, Claudia, I didn't know you like to come swim at night." Samantha is looking very beautiful in the ambient moonlight coming in from the window. She dog paddles over to you. She puts her hands on your shoulders and leans forward and whispers in your ear, "I have something I've wanted to show you for a very long time." What do you do?
If you allow her to pull you under the water and return her embrace, turn to page 80.
If you freak out and slap her across the face, turn to page 40.
If you're offended by what sounds like a salacious offer and swim away to get out of the pool, turn to page 53.
If you feel the bile rise in your throat as that diabolic dose of the devil's drugs makes its way out of your system and purifies you, turn to page 111.
If you lose your shit because Samantha has been dead 3 years now, Turn to page 12.
If you decide to reveal your true feelings to Samantha and say, Samantha, I'd love to see what you have to show me, but first, I'd like to kiss you. Turn to page 82.
We're doing that one. All right, that's the choice. DC's 9, so you're going to roll 2d6, and if you roll under 9, then you must narrate Becoming the Bride of Satan.
Samantha smiles. Her smile is seductive and playful, and she laughs and swims away from you. Looking back as she backpedals toward the edge of the pool, you follow her. She gets out, and as she does, a circle forms around you of black cats. And the cats transform before your eyes into beautiful women wearing black bridesmaid dresses. You feel your body lifted from the water as you are levitated with a force out of your control, and you find yourself floating towards Samantha as horns emerge from her forehead.
A+ on that. All right, let's cheat. I'm going with Samantha. What? She's been dead.
Samantha was in a terrible car accident, and it was particularly traumatic for you, not just because she was one of your best friends, but because you almost got into that car as well. And there's a part of your brain that says, you're on acid, it's fine. You're on acid, it's fine. But that part isn't in control right now. And the only thing that you can think of doing is turning and climbing out of the pool, soaked to the bone, and running straight out into the courtyard towards that payphone. You get to the payphone, you're shuddering, you call your home collect, but no one picks up. What do you do?
Hang up the phone and run down the street in your small clothes, your hair and body still streaming with water. Turn to page 42.
If you accept help from the priest standing there in the street light, silhouetted, turn to page 33.
If the phone rings when you hang it up and you answer and listen, turn to page 70.
If you exit the phone booth, reach down and pick up the axe that just happened to be sitting there, turn to page 96.
If you exit the phone booth and trip over the black cat that's in your way, turn to page 78.
If you navigate the swirling, twirling labyrinth of colors that are interfering with your vision and make your way to the trash can on the corner to vomit your bad choices up, turn to page 111.
Careful with that axe, Claudia.
You stumble out of the phone booth, shaken, sad that your family doesn't love you anymore. You reach down and you grip that handle tight. You pull the axe up to you as you shiver and walk back down the path towards the dorm. You creak the door back open. Your feet making wet thuds on the hardwood floor as you walk down the hall. Then, far down the hall on the other end, you see a light coming out from under the door. But no one should be up this late. What do you do?
If you decide to complete your journey down the hallway, dragging the axe behind you, leaving a groove in the wood floor, and then burst through the door using the axe, screaming, "Here's Johnny!" Turn to page 18.
If you decide to take the axe and, with the assumption in your head, this must all be a horrible dream, and you decide to search out Miss Kinsley, the history teacher who has given you an F on every test, turn to page 18.
If this moment suddenly reminds you of that time a few months ago when you took acid and you went chopping down trees with an axe, only to realize later that you had hallucinated and you were actually just chopping vegetables in the kitchen. Go and chop down some more trees. Turn to page 28.
If you startle very easily and spin around and accidentally bury the axe in the head of whoever just stepped up behind you, turn to page 44.
If you lift the axe in front of you and catch the glimpse of a reflection of something behind you in the axe's blade, turn to page 120.
I'm going to go with the reflection in the axe blade for the first choice.
DC's 11.
You lift the axe up, hallway light reflecting on the axe. You can just barely make out the silhouette of something behind you, and it's getting bigger. You're almost too afraid to turn around and look. As you slowly turn your head, the lights are dimming, and you see a dark figure reaching out to you with a hand. And the hallway behind you from where you came is now turned into a dark wedding procession. But people are wearing black as if it were a funeral. And in some ways it is, as this figure takes your hand and leads you down the hallway.
Since I'm cheating now, we're gonna go with finding your history teacher.
You make your way to the faculty wing. It's dark. There's some rooms that seem to have sound coming from them. But then you find the one room that is playing Vivaldi. Because although there are no names on the doors, your history teacher is always playing Vivaldi. And so you look at the door and you kick your foot into the door and it slams open. And there is your history teacher doing sit-ups on the ground in full 80s regalia. What do you do?
If you raise the axe high over your head, run into the room toward your history teacher, shouting, "Ah! I hate this!" Turn to page 408.
If you quite suddenly realize that you're just in the rec room of the orphanage you were raised in after your parents died, turn to page 91.
If you break down sobbing and collapse to the floor, turn to page 113.
If you decide to get down on the floor and also do sit-ups, turn to page 171.
If your instincts kick in and all of your dancing training compels your feet to move along to the music and you dance, turn to page 666.
This is DC 12. If your choice succeeds, then you must finish the story.
Let's go with the breaking down crying.
As your knees hit the floor with a dull thud, your history teacher doesn't stop doing sit-ups. Your history teacher doesn't even know you're here. No one cares that you're here except for them. You wipe the tears from your face, and your eyes are still watery. You turn around, and there's a hand offering to pull you up off the floor and into your new life. And you take it. And the dark shadow envelops you.
To the orphanage we go.
Wait, what was I thinking? You say. This is just the gym and rec room of the orphanage you've lived at ever since your parents were killed in that thresher accident. How foolish to imagine that you were a gifted dancer, that you flew all the way to Italy because you're so special. How foolish to think that anyone would want to marry you. I guess it's almost time for lunch. And you make your way down a dreary hall filled with kids of various ages, none of whom will ever be adopted into a forever family. You sit down, you begin eating your cold sandwich, and you hate this place so much. Almost anything would be better than this. Why is this the hand you were dealt? You go about your day, back to the dormitory. You lay down on your bunk and you begin to drift off. But you don't quite fall asleep when you hear a car pulling up out front. You get up, you look out the window, and there is a black sedan. That's strange. Maybe someone from the state. The back doors open, and a trio of women get out, each wearing a long black dress and black veils over their faces, as if they just got back from a funeral. The orphanage director goes out to speak to them, as if it's the most normal thing in the world.